Hello, Dorsie. Hello, Dorsie.
Hello.
There we go. How are you, Dorsie?
I'm okay. I don't know what the hassle was.
That's weird. Yeah, I don't know. I heard it beep when you first logged in, which tells me that someone's on audio. But then all of a sudden, I couldn't hear anything, and I just want to make sure it wasn't anything on my end. So did you just hang up and call back in? Dorsie? Huh. Maybe I'll just call your number. I don't know if you can hear me or not. I'll just give you a call, though. Dorsie, are you on yet?
Hey, anybody there?
Hey, success.
Okay, how about that?
All right. How about all this new fangled technology here?
Yeah, the webinar is such a fantastic educational tool that I'm I'm very anxious to master the use of it, but I'm always concerned that, I'll have 12 people out there and not being able to connect. But anyhow, we've made it.
All right. So I don't know how much, Bill has spoken to you about integrator support. I know the packet he sent you that just kind of highlights, what our business, proposition is in general. And I guess that what we're here to do today is to let you really kind of see some of the program and see what the dealers are using that's helping them generate the business, some of the marketing tools and resources that we've been putting together. And right. I know I sent the invite for a full hour, but then I noticed that you were only expecting 30 minutes. So, I'll just make this the most, useful period of your time as I can, and just let me know if there's anything that's redundant or if you have questions. I just want you to get the information and the answers you need to determine if this is a good opportunity for you or not.
Sure. Well, Bill, the reason 30 minutes was designated was that he had invited me to see a 30-minute webinar. So I thought that was the time that was allotted. But I have whatever time we need, okay?
Okay, great. And I do have, the only thing I have is at 11:30 Eastern. I've got a call, so I'll just need to hop off a little bit before then. But I don't expect
we'll probably be done by then.
Yeah, exactly. So, what we're looking at are just a few dots to get started, and then what we can do is, in more detail, I can answer any questions you have. But basically, what we send to a prospective dealer is this particular document here that just talks a little bit about our implementation program. We've learned quite a bit over the past several months, about what is working and what's not working, and where the integrators tend to stumble in their transition into this kind of a business. And so what we've done is put together a program where it's really structured, and for 90 days we really hold their hand, we hold them accountable. They participate in weekly training, and basically as that 90 days progresses, typically I've seen within a couple of months, the people that get it or are ever going to get it, they're pretty much self-sufficient after about 60 days. But the purpose of this was to generate demand from their end user client base up through the channel. And so what we ask them to do is submit their logo. Everything we do for them is branded by their company. So I can show you some examples this morning of what some of the different dealers have been utilizing. And then we'll do like a launch meeting, if you will, with their whole company. And we've sort of learned who needs to be in these meetings first out, and who doesn't, and how do we get, the buy-in. So there's kind of an art, really, that we're starting to master as far as, how to kind of get the naysayers and those really kind of old school integration guys that like big projects to start seeing this as a good potential solution for their clients. We also really work with them on like their comp programs and how they're structuring the RMR sales effort in general. So we'll work really closely typically with the individual who's tasked with generating the business, as well as the owner or whoever they report to. Those are typically the two types of people we work the most with. And then we will get them signed up. We have a weekly webinar. It's a standing webinar. We have 3 of them each week for different audiences. We have one for owners and executives, which talks a lot about leadership and, just if you have a negative Nell or a naysayer, how do you deal with it? Or, are you compensating your people the right way? And, things that the owners need to deal with. And then we have one for the salespeople right afterwards. And basically, in those we talk a lot more about, here's an example of an application, here's how you sell this, here's how you price this, here's how you go through the contract. Those kinds of tools that they need to have and understand as sales professionals. And then the last one we do each week is for project managers. And this one has the smallest audience. Right now we only have a handful of people that are participating in it. But it's really for the companies that are already bringing on accounts and are learning how to make sure that the deployment goes smoothly, that the products they spec work in a managed services capacity. And there's so many different decision makers throughout that chain of delivery that need to have a voice and need to have some expectations of what they're supposed to do. And so we try to get the project managers or lead technicians, whoever makes those decisions about products being installed and manages the deployment, we want to make sure they know, who to contact when as they're, putting a new system together and those kinds of things. So the training and all that stuff will go on for the whole year. Basically, people who have registered for that, it's a reminder in their Outlook for every week for the rest of 2013. But the 90-day program is something that we monitor really closely just to make sure that, nobody goes astray and wanders off the path, if that makes sense. And then what we do once they know what packages they're going to be using in terms of what products they're going to be pairing with what services, and they have the individuals ready to go out and sell, and they've got some of this stuff going, we initiate the marketing campaign. And the marketing campaign is what we call a 411 program. It's something that I've just kind of changed the name of this year, but it's 4 email blasts per month, 1 webinar per month, and 1 snail mail piece per month that we develop for them. In some cases, we just send them the content, and then they prefer to send it out through their normal means of marketing and emailing. Some companies don't have, an organized email system and stuff like that, so in some cases we handle the email blast for them, and they just send us their mailing list. After we get that process going, we typically start to see some leads generated within the first few weeks. The webinars tend to be the ones that generate the most interest because you have a candid audience and people only spend, that amount of time with you if they're really interested in what you have to say. And so we typically get more qualified leads through that. And then what we'll do is have a weekly conference call at least. Some of these folks I talk to almost daily, but I require that we work with each of the salespeople at least once a week to look at what's already in the pipeline, that you're working on regardless of whether it came through our marketing initiatives or not. Is there a managed services play on stuff you're already working on? What about the leads that we've generated? Who have you talked to? What's the feedback? And just really coaching them and helping them identify, ways to position these services in their sales effort. And we do obviously expect that they will utilize the resources that we have created for them. So I'll show you a few of those now. One of the most popular things that we've been developing is our sales manual, which this is basically a packet that the sales professionals can take with them to any site visit, and it just keeps them moving along in that sales process, and it reminds them of what's the next step. Because I think that a lot of these guys tend to, they'll talk about it, they'll mention it. Yeah, the end user seemed a little bit interested. They didn't know what questions to ask. The integrator didn't really know what else to say or what questions they should be asking. So we developed this tool to help them guide the conversation. And so basically, what they'll do is, have a packet for each customer, and the specific salesperson will fill out the details. And then this is their checklist of what they need to do to really sell to the customer. And then this packet basically walks them through each of these different steps. the first thing we tell them to do is gather information. I mean, obviously. So we just try to make it as basic as possible. We call this our 5 W's method. And what it does is it helps identify the pain or the cost or the losses that they're incurring, so that way we can go back and explain how these solutions, are resolutions to those scenarios. And so this is sort of how I can indirectly communicate with the end user. We want the dealers to be, that service provider. And, it's their clients. They're the ones doing the installation. They own the contract with the end user. The dealer is my customer. Our contracts are between us and the dealer. So my job is to make them successful. So I always try to just, get them out there and do it. If I do it for you every time, you're never going to learn. So this helps me get the information I need to be of use to them, but at the same time, puts them in that situation across the table from the end user to really have to think on their feet and start learning how to position these solutions.
Okay.
After they've gotten some of the scope or an understanding of what the client's needs are, then they have to go do a site walk. And basically, this is how we start gathering the details of, is there any equipment already there? And if so, what is it? So we can determine how well we can operate with what's already there. And if not, what do we need to do to retrofit it so we can work with what's there? Other things that, we've learned as we've brought on new sites, like lighting conditions. We can't do nighttime surveillance if there's absolutely no light. So those kinds of questions that if we need to, add some artificial lighting or use special cameras or thermal or something like that, this is when we like to get those answers so that we don't accidentally put a proposal together, waste an estimator's time and the salesperson's time and the client's time putting something together that's not even going to work. So that's how we communicate on these things. This is a needs assessment tool, and usually what I do is work with them to understand how to use this, but this helps them identify which of our services are the solutions that the client is looking for. Because end users are ringing the phones and asking for these solutions, they don't really know they're there yet. It's the integrator's position to have to educate and inform them of what's available and to connect the dots between, the questions they answered previously and how to meet those needs. So this tool, what I do is after they've figured out what those answers to the who, what, where, when, why stuff is, then they can come here and start matching, okay, well, they could really use some better reporting, or they need some sort of, virtual tour or guard, and then identify which of these services will meet those needs. And then we've also identified which markets are adopting these services the most. And there's really a couple different scenarios that we're working on. And what I found, Dorsie, is that there's really two kinds of end users that we've sold to, and that your sales approach obviously adjusts. But on one end of the spectrum, you have the type of customer that maybe they've had some security, maybe they had some beams or some intrusion panels inside their building, but for some reason they continue to get ripped off. Car dealers, warehouses, people that store building materials, unmanned facilities, we do solar farms and oil rigs, places that are just vulnerable outside, whereas, protecting them before these solutions were available would be really expensive and in many cases ineffective because false alarm rates are very high and things like that. So protecting outdoor assets is sort of a niche that we found, and so that's why we've created a specific brochure to speak to those types of customers. The other side of the spectrum is the side where it's people that have a security staff, they've really invested in their security, and they're continuing to invest in their security. So in this case, the ROI wouldn't be, reduction of losses necessarily, perhaps, but in most cases, it's guard replacement, and we're saving them money instead of having a physical guard. We're switching them to a virtual guard. So just, that's kind of where we're seeing our business. And the property management area is another one that we're seeing adopt some of these solutions, because it's really ideal for property managers to reduce the amount of overhead they have to allocate to any one specific asset or property. And it allows them to be more efficient and save money. And in some cases, property management firms even, incorporate these solutions in the pricing to their tenants. So they might make a little bit of money off of it anyhow. So we try to, speak to that here in this piece. And then these are just some really basic educational pieces that just explain, how this industry has sort of evolved to a more hosted and managed type solution, and what feature sets are available in hosted and managed solutions that are not available with your traditional on-site type security solutions. And so this one is access control, and this one is video surveillance. And that's just our very basic sales manual that gives, the salespeople something to start with and something to go out and do. Do you have any questions on that particular piece at all, Dorsie?
Just a couple. How does the dealer, your customer, decide what product, what brand he's going to be using?
That's an excellent question, and the answer will vary by dealer. But here is what we've done and where we are today. I can just kind of give you a little background. When I first started this, Bill was like, Sharon, we need a kit. We need to simplify it. We need to kit this thing together, tell them exactly what to use. Don't give them too many options, and just make it pretty straightforward, clean. He referenced his Dictograph franchise and how simple it was. So we started with that. But what we've found out is that the integrator customer, the dealer, is very different than like an alarm dealer. They pride themselves on their engineering and their abilities to customize solutions for clients. And they pay a hefty price for Cisco certified engineers to do that. So doing cookie cutter installations was not exactly what they were looking for. However, the cookie cutter thing is what sells. So here's what we've been doing, is instead of trying to tell them these are the products you should use and these are the services you should sell to these customers, what we're doing is asking the dealers in that sort of launch meeting is, what customers do you currently sell to? Who is your existing base? What products do you currently carry? And what products do you feel comfortable with? And then once we have the answers to those questions, I can go back and look at our integration matrix and say, okay, so you like using Linnell, here is what we can do with Linnell. And then that way, we're not having to ask them to take on a new enterprise access control system, because I'll tell you, Dorsie, the hardest thing has been getting the buy-in from like those project manager types. Because if you tell them this is what to use, they don't want to hear it. They don't want to hear it. They have relationships. They have, they've been trained and certified. Like, it's a big deal to ask them to take on a new line. So this is our matrix of integrations that we can leverage. So basically what I'll do is find out what the answers to those questions are. And once I figure out, okay, so you sell to hospitals. Hospitals are one that, they're going to want something like a virtual guard. They're not going to want, some basic hosted video application. So I help them connect the dots of, what can we do with what you already install for these companies or these customers, and sort of reverse engineer the answer to your question.
Okay. And I would presume that the product that they pick to work with is going to direct them to various solution providers or central stations
Sure.
to do the actual monitoring?
Yeah, so Integrator Support has two relationships with monitoring centers. We have one with G4S and one with MACE, neither of which are exclusive or anything like that. But the reason we have two is because there's really two different market segments. I have some customers that sell really basic video verification or intrusion solutions. And they don't need G4S's, certified engineers to handle that. But then you have some hospitals, for example, that do require, that, more sophisticated operator or virtual guard on the other end. So the price points obviously vary for each of those solutions. And so what we'll do is simplify the process for the dealer where regardless of what they sell, whether it's hosted access, hosted video, video monitoring, they only get one invoice, they only have one contract, and that's from us. It just simplifies that process of vendor management for them. But this is our price book, just to kind of give you a feel for how we handle multiple providers. I've broken this spreadsheet down into different tabs for hosted services and managed services. And for our hosted video, all the client or all the dealer needs to do is come in and plug in these fields, and it changes their price points for them. Similarly, if they're using access control through Brevo, we also have a price sheet that incorporates AMAG. They do the same thing here with the number of doors. For their video monitoring, so they could sell a system that has hosted storage, hosted access, and monitoring. I mean, it can all be done together, which is great, because the software that's used by most of the monitoring centers that do this is SureView systems. I don't know if you're familiar.
Yeah.
But they've got such, so it's not always that it has to go back to a specific central station because of product, because SureView opens up that door for us with all those integrations. But mainly what's great about this is that once they price out their system, they can come here and it generates their purchase order for all of these different providers, for all of the different services for this one simple system. And it just streamlines that estimating process and getting it online. Also here is where we have a proposal sheet that they can start plugging in what they're going to mark up to the end user, and it totals everything for their upfront, like capital investment type cost here. And then these are all of their costs, and they can mark them up in the yellow box, and it just totals everything for the yellow box for them.
Okay.
And, so that's, I hope that helps, but that's how we help them understand where the services will end up. And ultimately, I try to get them to think less about the widget and more about the solution.
Right. If a end user wants to be able to see what goes on at the hosting facility or at the service provider, is there the wherewithal to actually have them visit G4S or MACE and
Oh,
see?
absolutely. Yep. Our East Coast clients tend to take their customers to G4S. We had a power company visit a couple weeks ago. Next week we've got a property manager going down there. It's all just based on, I guess, location. And, Boston's not the easiest place to get to, especially not this time of year. But they're always welcome to go. In addition, what's great is that we have a host of ways that they can ensure that their security protocols are being followed. The software gives us, here I can just show you a very quick example. But basically, they have the ability to see at any given time a time-stamped audit trail of, what's been going on, and making sure that the event is being handled according to their specifications or their protocol, their post orders, I guess, if you want to call it that.
Okay.
So this is sort of an example of what an end user would get. Now, all of the video that we view, we keep for 6 months at the monitoring center. So they always, within that 6 months can request to get this. In addition, most times if we have a real incident, what we'll do is like load everything up to an FTP site and let them download, all of these files. But basically on the left-hand side is what we call the audit trail. And I know the text is kind of small, and through GoToMeeting it's probably not very helpful to read, but every time they change camera view, any time they initiate an audio conversation, everything is listed here. And so the client can always go and see, okay, you're supposed to do a virtual tour at 9 a.m. What time did you actually do the virtual tour, and what did you see when you did it? So it just helps reassure everybody, that their expectations are being met.
And G4S supports voice down commands
That's
if
correct.
that's required.
Yeah, we do voice down. We also do push-to-talk audio. So if there's like an intercom system at like a door or a gate, we can receive audio through that kind of initiation as well.
Gotcha. Okay. Great.
And what's also great is SureView just came out with a new, they call it MX Cloud, and basically, G4S is deploying it, and what it does is instead of even having to go to an FTP site and download any of those video clips, they can just log into a portal. They can see live video. So if they ever want to just check out what's happening at the site at this moment, they can do that. And they can also look at any of the reports that has happened to date as well. So that's something that's going to make it that much more appealing to end users.
What kind of end user have you had the most success with? C-stores or manufacturers?
The ones that our revenue has come from has been a lot, like I mentioned, outdoor kind of applications. Roofing supplies, building materials, solar farms, oil rigs, those kinds of things. But something that we're doing now, there's a few projects that are being installed as we speak. Virtual doorman application for a commercial building. So making sure people can get in where they need to go if they're authenticated and able to enter. Also, like we're doing a hospital deployment where we're going to have some PTZ cameras in the parking lot, and it's actually a mental illness treatment facility. And so I guess the doctors and nurses have had some incidents, and basically they went to the integrator and said, we need a bid or a quote on how much it would cost to install some emergency call stations in the parking lot. And they're like, well, we'd have to trench. It would cost at least $100,000 to get these installed for you, or for $5,000 a month, you can actually have someone just monitor you. So you don't have to try to run to a call anyway. You can just be watched every time you leave. And so it's saving them some of that money up front, and it's actually a better solution. So it's interesting how these applications are starting to come up that we know what we're capable of doing, but it's just starting to set in with the integrators of how to position it, when they're talking to a dealer. Usually a salesperson would see a six-figure job and be excited about it. But this particular customer or dealer has been incentivized, around RMR, and they're starting to realize that, oh, maybe this is actually a better solution, and they can make more money individually by selling the RMR solution than selling the six-figure job. So,
right. Okay.
Yeah.
What?
I have a couple others, I guess.
Sure.
Just a couple examples of ones that I've created for some of our dealers. Like this is one it's just a trifold brochure, and I customize it for each of our dealers, and basically it just explains, a little bit about, why the integrator is, qualified to earn their business. And then on the inside, it talks about the different way we deliver these services. And, so this just helps educate them on how to utilize these things. So this is one that's not specific to any one industry like the others I showed you earlier. And what we've done, some of our dealers is taken this text and pictures out, move the logo sideways, and turn this into basically the addressable envelope. And then they just seal it, fold it, seal it, stamp it, and then they can mail them out.
Right.
So that's how we've done the snail mail pieces. And just, a few, this one's just kind of general about managed security services, not just virtual guarding, but just, mobile video, professional video monitoring, and hosted access, sort of just general educational piece.
Right, right. Okay.
And we have, it's just hard, I'm sorry, Dorsie, we have so much, and I'm trying to figure out, what matters the most to show you. But typically what I do with, a new dealer, once I get that first meeting with the sales group, is I present a PowerPoint as if it's them talking to a client. So I create the PowerPoint deck with their logo. If they already have a template, I'll just put my content on there. And basically what I do is present to them as if they're an end user so they can see how they use that same tool to present to their client. So that presentation tool is very valuable because it associates some of the video clips and examples that I showed you earlier, and just helps them understand sort of what the things they need to say, the points they really need to get across.
Okay.
And once they've made a sale, they can use that price book to initiate the purchase order that I showed you earlier. And then we have all the forms for them to fill out, all the, schedules and information about each of the individuals available, or each of the, staff members that have a password and, things like that. So we have all those onboarding forms, so it gives them a really clean, easy checklist so they don't do a lot of back and forth between the customer and us trying to gather the detail that they need. And
after the initial setup and so forth, and obviously customers that have access control systems are going to have constantly changing additions, deletions, schedules, and so forth. Who coordinates that? Since your company, IS, is sitting between the services provider, G4S as an example, and the dealer, who is it that the end user customer communicates all of these changes to? Do they communicate it to their dealer, to you, or directly to G4S?
Excellent question. For things like the changes and keeping the database fresh, they will go through their dealer. And then the dealer will go to G4S and copy me. That's been sort of the protocol. Then if it's something, though, where, like the example of the hospital we're working on, where there's somebody who wants an escort to their vehicle, they'll just call the 1-800 number for the monitoring center on their own. They'll call directly and say, hi, I'm Dr. Joe, ready to, go to my car. I'm at door 1, whatever. And then, so the things that they need immediately, and that interaction needs to be direct, we give them a special 1-800 number to call. But the general changes, updates, protocol adjustments, things like that will all go through the dealer. And the reason for that is because we've had some people call the monitoring center and say, hey, what would it cost to get voice down audio? And G4S never quotes anything through our dealers anyway. All pricing, all sales stuff goes through me. But the integrator needs to be the one to go out and price out paging systems and stuff like that. We can't do that for them. So we always want that dealer to be in that position as the service provider to the customer. It helps alleviate some of that responsibility on our end because we're not really in a position to do that. And also, the main thing we're trying to do, our name is integrator support, and so we're trying to support the integrators in their effort to provide the very best service to their customer. And whenever they think security, they should be thinking our dealer, not us.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right.
Yeah, and I guess this last thing that you're looking at, it's just another kind of resource that I wanted to mention is, when we work with their sales managers and the owners to discover what kind of commission structures are best for their organization, this is just sort of a template. It gets them thinking about it, how to handle, incentives and what they should be looking for. So this is obviously very bare bones, but it gives them a feel for, oh, we obviously want longer contracts, so we need to make sure we incentivize them for longer contracts, things like
that. Right. Okay. Kind of a general question. I can see where that a dealer would perceive the value of IS when they are just trying to get into this managed services sector of the marketplace. But once they have got all of this information from you and so forth, what's the hook? What do they see as the value a year from now of IS being involved in the process?
Sure. Well, first of all, I guess the number one issue with any kind of channel-driven industry like ours is pricing, right? Is everyone whole? And if the perception is that we're eating into their margin, that would definitely be a concern. However, it's not the case. There's no market. They can't get a better price going around us. G4S only sells to dealers through integrator support. And Mace, although they have a bunch of direct dealers, we get the margin from them. So they quote our dealers as if it's a direct dealer price, and then we get the margin piece through Mace. They squeeze a little bit to get our dealer base. So just wanted to let you know, the pricing has not been an issue for us. Our agreement, our monitoring contract is standardized at 12 months auto renewal. So obviously they'd have to really be, expecting to want to make a change, within a couple months before the end of that term. And I'll just tell you, we give really good service. Whenever they're working on opportunities, we are so good about educating them, answering questions. We'll do joint sales calls if that's what they need. We have not lost a customer. We've been doing this with G4S specifically for about 3.5 years, and we have not lost our first customer or any customer.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's great.
So that's the main thing is customer satisfaction. We've had to walk away, as hungry as we are, right, and as new as this is and as, kind of delicate a flower as integrator support is right now, we've walked away from opportunities where the expectation just was not, it wasn't reasonable, and our mantra is that we want to be the best at what we do. We want to perform excellently for our dealers and for their clients. And so we only take jobs that we know we can perform. And because of that, we've been able to keep people happy. And a few of those were takeovers from people that had been, I guess, disappointed or unsatisfied in the past. And we've been able to keep earning their business. So.
Okay. Good. Well, that's excellent. I appreciate your taking the time to walk
my pleasure, Dorsie. I'd love to get to know you a little bit more. I've met Ron at a few different, ISC West, kind of shows and stuff, and his, I guess, assistant, or I'm not sure, is it Linda or Lydia or something like that?
Katie?
Yeah, Kate. It is Kate. I don't know why I was thinking L.
Katie.
But yeah. No, very nice group you work with. And so when I saw your name in the signature, I was like, wait, he works with Ron. Oh, okay, small world. So,
right.
Yeah,
Will you have a booth at ISC?
We will be presenting at ISC, and then we typically try to bring our dealers to the PSA booth.
Okay.
They've got a great little seating area, and as one of their partners, we're able to leverage that. So that helps a lot.
Right. Right.
But I will be there if you'd like to meet and shake hands.
Yeah.
And
Sure, that'd be great. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
That would be wonderful.
I'm kind of late this year. I was pretty surprised when I saw the dates, like the third week of April or second week of April. I was really surprised.
Yeah, second week, I think. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Well, again, I appreciate it. Is there anything that you might send me as backup material so that I could sort of review what we went through?
Yeah, I'd be happy to send you. I mean, like, I trust you. I asked Bill, I'm like, do you have an NDA with Dorsie? He's like, Sharon, you don't need to worry about it. I said, okay.
I'd be glad to sign one. I thought we did, actually, but I'd be happy to sign an NDA. So
okay, well, I'll send over what I showed you. The only thing I probably won't send is the video clip because that's a really large file. But other than that, I can send you these PDFs and just give you something to read through and, better determine if this makes sense.
Okay, and I'm sure I'll have some questions. Maybe I'll bounce back at you one day next week and see if we could get a little follow-on education.
That sounds great. I appreciate it. Thank you so much, Dorsie.
Thank you, Sharon. Take good care.
Yes, you too. Bye-bye.
Bye now.